Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Divine Within, the invisible connection with God. I'm Santiago Kneeland, your host, and today we're going to be talking about the art of a universal language and the school of service. On the Divine Within podcast, we share real conversations to help you find a personal connection with God. My goal is to support your faith, growth, and journey toward discovering the divine within yourself. Join us to deepen your faith and spiritual journey. Today, we're stepping into a conversation that spans the personal, the communal, and even the universal. The art of a universal language and the school of service. Together with my guest, April Helen, a visionary leader and art of the living consultant, we'll journey through what it means to define religion as a living relationship with the divine, and how that inner experience unfolds into action, unity, and purpose. This is more than a discussion. It's an invitation to see your own spiritual journey as part of a much greater whole. So welcome, April Helen. It's always a pleasure to have you here.
My pleasure as well, brother. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's an interesting topic, and I like the conversations we had leading up to this because I think it's very applicable. The life that we're living, the secular world, the material world, it kind of gets into us. So I think it's a very profound topic, and it's practical as well. So let's dive into because we got a lot to cover.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, I want to. The topic is the art of universal language and the school of service. But the first segment, or what I want to talk about first, is redefining religion. And I have this quote here to start us off that I think it's pretty interesting and kind of sets us into the mood. So to define or redefine religion is, and once we begin to see religion not as an institution but as a living experience, the question becomes, where does the experience begin? It starts deep within and the quiet dialogue between the soul and the divine. What can you tell us about this definition and anything about religion?
Yes. Yes, I too have enjoyed our conversations over the years leading up to this moment on this auspicious day as many people celebrate a divine master teacher on the planet who taught that religion as a personal experience is the path. And yes, you mentioned that deep inner dialogue. It's certainly where it starts. And that acknowledgement, like the last podcast that we did, a little plug for that we're already connected and it's up to us to maintain and um, experiment and investigate, incubate in this amazing opportunity to have that personal connection with our creator. So,
And you're talking about an inner dialogue, and I think and that's where everything starts from. And that inner dialogue, I think it starts small. We've been talking about this. It's a little spark that you have to, kind of keep and make it grow much further, and even you can even share it. So, how is that the leading piece into redefining religion, into really understanding? Because one of the things that I think we have to really understand or redefine is we're not talking about institutional religion. I mean, that's like the common cultural, way of thinking of religion. But religion is really, and what we learned at this podcast and our conversation is extremely personal. So how does that inner voice, that inner communion, that inner communication lead to that personal religion?
well, interesting. What's coming up for me right now is the people who are surrounding us when we're children. So, whether it's our birth parents or caregivers, extending into community and schools and churches, those who have the most influence over our very moldable minds at that young age.
Mm-hmm.
And my experience of finding that authentic, unique inner dialogue for myself, it's taken quite a while to unveil or pull back what my caregiver's influence was. So it's definitely a journey. maybe even a lifetime for some, and maybe even beyond this life, of
Definitely.
recognizing what my inner dialogue is with the creator. And of course, you and I have a mutual admiration and understanding that we have a fragment of our creator inside of us guiding the way, and to recognize that within ourselves is, I think, is the key to this transition. I love how we're talking about the redefining or reframing of this word religion, and we actually started that on the last podcast as well,
Yeah.
of not allowing this outside world, taking the information in and discerning it, and how it relates to you and your personal relationship with your creator. And as I have been on this path, ever since childhood, really
Mm-hmm.
in awe of aligning in integrity with the values that I say I have. And
Exactly.
I catch myself in the inner dialogue being someone who I don't want to be. So there's that refinement of character. And I think that that is what I am most intrigued about right now, is really getting that inner
Yeah.
dialogue in alignment with my outer expression through altruistic living.
Definitely. And you hit on something that's very important, that inner dialogue. And we all kind of tend to see how we act towards other people outside, but we kind of not consider how we're treating ourselves, and that's where it starts. And if your inner dialogue is not loving, if you're not loving yourself, and that's a lot of what I talk about, about how we view and the way we give meaning through all these archetypes and how we view our lives. You can see maybe our lives can be as mundane as anything, we go and do mechanic stuff. But if we do not give that meaning, if we don't see what's behind it, how we're growing, how we're interacting, how we're, the hero basically in our story instead of the villain, then not, first of all, if we don't do that, our life is meaningless. But if we do that in a negative way, which is the bad part, how are we going to perceive ourselves? And how many times in this world, I mean, we err, we sin, we commit, the things that are not, maybe not up to our standards. But you know, how do you want to see that? Is an error that you can mend, or is it something that defined you? And especially in nowadays with this world that anything goes on social media, it stays there, and defines your existence. Everybody says, we're 40 something. And back in the day, you could do a lot of stupid stuff, and maybe it wasn't there for posterity, but kind of put, you know, the world that we live in and all these difficult things, and how can we have a good inner communication? That's the
Mhm.
question.
Well, so we started this in the last podcast too, of sharing some ideas around how to keep that connection
Mm-hmm.
maintained. And I point back to the body. What am I doing to my physical temple? Because
Yeah.
the things that I'm learning about, like the pituitary gland in relation to this cosmic, I think of it like a radar,
Mm-hmm.
and
Like an antenna, right? We
yes,
we we carry. Yeah.
and the cleaner I keep
Mm.
my thoughts, my physical temple, that connection
Yeah.
is more clear, so I can listen and be guided in the discernment process of decisions. So it's this, well, I keep getting a flashback of how far I have come in this refinement of the inner dialogue to be more
Yeah.
authentic with my creator. I grew up with a, a mother and family who I kept that in my inner dialogue, which was not where I want my integrity to be.
Okay.
And I talk to myself like a little girl, sending her to her room all the time.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
And so I don't think I even recognized that until I was about 20, 21. And once I recognized it, and now I'm 48, and I'm so much better about it. I don't scream at myself. I don't send myself to my room.
yeah.
and and it's more cheerful, it's more optimistic.
Yeah,
It's more of the qualities that I adore about my creator.
yeah,
And I definitely consider that alignment of attempting to refine my character to embody the characteristics of my creator.
definitely,
Yeah, that is
definitely.
helping to get my inner dialogue and outer expression in service, altruism, more frequent and stable.
Yeah. And I mean, you're talking about refinement, and I think this is a key word because you're refining, you're improving, you always, and this is the constant, stepping forward, evolving, and it's eternal. We're the concept is actualizing. You're going from potential to, actual, and we're perfecting ourselves. So this refinement starts with us and starts in our mind. And I like a lot, and I'm gonna tell you what happens to me when I started to catching a lot of these traits or a lot of these things that maybe weren't the ones that you said that I want to keep for myself or want to you know uh further in life. But um with my children especially is where I see, where I catch how maybe those conditionings where everything behind from my previous generations to start doing the things that I didn't like my parents did to me. I start doing with that, but it's really being conscious. I think the key there is to being conscious of that. Then you can change it. If you're really out there and you're not being focused and you have your mind on what you're doing, then you can't change it. So I think, being aware is very important in this process. And having children, and I have three children that, I have three different varieties of these things. But it's interesting how when you have children, you grow with them, and those experiences that you had when you were young, you relive them through them. And that's so beautiful, because I think it's also what you're saying, the traits that you admire from your creator. And those are the traits, that I see, as a father, as a creator, quote unquote, to my children, and who the eternal creator unto me. How can I be, and how can I take those traits of the perfect father, which is our creator, and be like that, be that father that is trying to get, not perfect, but trying to be better each day for his children. I think that's very important.
God, that's so important. Yes, and as we are considering this redefining or reframing of that word religion, that is a really important point of this. And I guess the popular thing right now, generational healing, lineage healing, and you're right, it's that up step in consciousness, awareness, observation, that are we doing our part in this generation to ascend the planet?
Yeah.
And I take that responsibility
Hmm.
very realistically, and advocate that the 8 billion plus people on the planet play their role, do their part, to the best of their ability, whatever their
Yeah.
capacity. And even if it's simply getting in alignment with your inner reality to your outer expression.
Yeah.
And although that may seem so simple, because we're so ingrained in whatever our caregivers have given us, there is definitely a breakaway that needs to happen. Depending on the caregiver's methodology, strategy, belief systems. And I don't like stereotyping. I know sometimes that they are useful, that I think that the because of the state of the world right now, I can only intuit that what we're talking about is a rarity, yet I definitely think that it's growing in
Definitely.
popularity. And I think it really started, I can see these bumps in the evolution of the planet that we've gotten these risings of consciousness, and I think we're in one of them right now.
Definitely, definitely. And any as we're saying, any true uh if we were saying any true truthful refinement, and really when you really assess and you want to go further, want to really move forward in this, you have to be there's struggle. There's the part that we have to let go, we have to do without. And there's an interesting archetype that I use in the Mayan mythology on the cosmology and the Solkin, and it's right the last seal in the sequence, and it's the storm. And what says
Mm,
is that before you go into the sun, and that's why the sun always comes after the storm, and that I think that's there's a reason to that, because the storm, what it does, it catalyzes it.
mm,
Whatever that's not going to be eternal, it just takes it away. It speeds up things, so if you go through these difficult processes, and sometimes we kind of tend to shy away from them and not maybe embrace them, and maybe even if we're living them, we're not even learning the experience. But if the more we embrace them and we go head on to the storm, the more catalyzed, the more transformed we're going to be. And that, and it washes, like you were saying, we're talking about the mind and how we can clear our thoughts, and how it's important to start with our body. And I always thought that, and I believe that we have three bodies, spirit, mind, and matter. And as long as one or two of them are in balance, the third one can come in balance, so it's very practical to start with a body. You can exercise, you can eat well, and then follow with your mind. And once you start understanding yourself, you start understanding your mind, that takes you into developing your spirit, and that is religion. And now that we're defining, that is the process of going into religion. When you have everything in balance in your body, then you have the capacity to go and find um yeah, understand God and divinity.
mm. Yes. I like that you said, and I'm thinking of also the word progress,
Yeah.
refining for the progress. And then I think of when you mention basically inevitable challenges and this steel on steel refinement,
Mm-hmm.
and the blade and getting it sharp through that challenge of the metal being together. And I from a very young age understood that challenge was the path towards experiential wisdom, and I embrace it. I really look at challenge as like
Yeah.
enthusiastically, and let me go into the fire and have that alchemical process of
It
refining
it
me.
transforms you. It's so beautiful to
It really
transform,
is.
to shed your old skin. It
Yes.
really is. It really is. To catalyze. I love that. I totally agree with you. Totally
Yeah.
agree with you.
Well, and then when meeting with other people who understand this process,
Yeah.
it reduces the suffering, right? We
Yeah.
can choose
It's
to
relatable.
not
You can
suffer.
understand it. You can lick
Yeah.
your wounds, right? You can share in battle, right? So, once we have this inner dialogue, and we going now to the expression, the outer expression, which is going to be our next segment. How can you practically, because we can stay here forever and trying to define a good explanation for religion. What can our audience take, or what is your take on what
Yeah.
April Helen defines religion as?
Very simple, personal experience. Specifically, if you want to make it specific, with your creator, and how that relationship, as you move through navigating all of life's experiences, for me, especially challenges, and sharing the joys. So to magnetize more of them, And there's a part in here in this portion of the conversation that before we move forward into the outer
Uh-huh.
expression that I think is important in this religion, a personal experience, is intention setting. Going through the world, like you said, through a higher level of consciousness, so intending to raise that consciousness, intending to have that relationship with my creator, intending to use that fodder to express more conscious, higher values in the world, love, um, all the things
Yeah.
that I adore about the creator. Yeah.
I always, now that you're saying about intending, I think that our actions are many times flawed because that's when we take them into the material plane. But as long as our intentions are in love, are based in truth, beauty, and goodness, then not that we get a ticket off, but we have to learn from our errors. You know, it's okay. You get a ticket, or maybe you get a warning, then you're gonna get a ticket. Maybe the next time you're gonna go to jail. You know what I mean. That's the problem. I mean, the path when you start going into a not so positive spiral,
Mm.
but that's the whole concept. You know, the intention. You just said it. If as long as we intend to have that connection, we intend to have that communion, we will find it because
Yeah.
that's where God meets us at the middle.